Thank you so much for joining us today, Kaiser University Multidisciplinary Center, as we present Mission Transition, Tips and Strategies to help students answer the age-old question, what do I want to be when I grow up? Presented by Kerilyn Redish.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today as we talk about another step along the mission transition here, thinking about and really helping our students to think about what do they want to be when they grow up. So thinking about objectives here, hopefully by the end of this session, you will gain several tools or strategies that you can use with your child in answering these three questions, really. So what are their interests? So what activities draw them in? What does he or she like to do? Okay. Thinking about their strengths. What are they good at, right? What areas do they really shine? And then thinking about their passions, which this one for a lot of young people kind of goes a bit over their head, but as grown-ups, we understand that it truly is important to have a job, to have a career, to be doing something in our lives that brings us joy and purpose. So here's the million-dollar question, and we've all been hearing it probably since about kindergarten when they have career day, right? That what do you want to be when you grow up? And I love this little picture of the kid with the, aviator glasses on and the cape coming out of the travel box. As I researched some things for this website, I did come across some people saying, you know what, maybe this question is really hurting our kids, suggesting or maybe even forcing them to fit into a box, to somehow define themselves by their job or career choice. But I don't necessarily agree, not that they're wrong, but I like to think of it in a different way. So what if we're helping our teens to discover, to really recognize, and to pursue their own interests, skills, and abilities? That is an important thing to do, and it is definitely going to help them to take steps towards defining their future. But one thing I've always told my students, and I tell my kids, is it is okay for them not to know what they want to be right now. So whether your student is in middle school, whether they're in high school, even if you're listening right now, you may still be wondering, as I am, I'm always looking for new things. What interests me, what other careers out there along the same lines of what does bring me joy, passion, and purpose. So how can we help our children figure these things out? So number one, we're going to watch for clues. Okay. So let's say your child really loves Legos. Okay. Or they're constantly making and creating and innovating new things. And what may seem like annoying habits because you walk behind them and step on the pieces they leave behind, they could be giving you hints for areas of interest or things that, may work out to be good for them later, right? So we're going to listen to things they tell us. If they're talking about things that interest them, whether it's maybe talking about helping a teacher or teaching, maybe you're listening to their conversations as they're helping a sibling in the house, or maybe you're noticing how they're always willing to lend a helping hand to grandma or to a neighbor. So there's some other things that you're listening, not only what they're telling you, but what they're doing. Ask them questions, talk to them, okay? We talked last week a little bit about how the week before we'd had the seminar on, the race to communicate with your children. So talk to your students, talk to your children, and find out what kind of drives them. What do they like and what do they not like? Introduce them to new ideas. And this one is a favorite of mine, which I'm going to hit on in a second. Show them examples. Okay, they don't know, if they haven't been exposed to something, they don't necessarily know what's out there. Let them try it out. I've heard of job shadowing. Some schools even offer programs where students are going out into the workforce to get some skills or some practice. Some high schools, or many high schools, actually offer different types of technical or CTE type programs where students are able to get some real world experience there. So in the times like we have right now, perhaps a video job shadowing is possible, and I'll show you some ways that perhaps we can get into the mindset of someone in these other careers without actually having to meet them or be with them. And then what we're really going to focus on today is completing personality, interest, and career assessments to help our children explore possibilities. And in case it interests you or some other adult that most of these are, would also be fantastic for any adult, okay? So here's something to do right now in your home, while we all are away from school. they have a, a group of people around them that can really give them some insight. So encouraging them to ask others, what is it that you do? Okay, what do you like about what you do? Everyone doesn't love their job 100% of the time, right? But what is it that they like about what they do? How did they get there, right? Did they apply for that job and get there right away, or did they take a, one path? They got some training here and maybe they were promoted, or that allowed them to get the experience they needed to move to a different position. What else have they done, or what else would they like to do? That could be a good one. And then helping them to complete, here's a worksheet here actually, and I got this off of, I believe it's off of the Project 10's resource document. I have all the resources listed at the end here. You'll be able to go in quickly and click on these to find them. But this is just a career family tree worksheet in it. Whether or not grandmother, grandfather, you even could go in and change the names to specific people. You don't have to model it exactly like this one. But getting them to ask the people around them, the people they have connections with, to see what kind of careers are out there. All right, this is that one I was talking about. I love this. And I used to have this conversation in my classroom at some point every single year. But we want to ask our students, okay, knowledge is power. Okay, how can we aspire or hope or want to be something that we don't even know exists? And this is a concept our children do not understand. So let's think. When we ask our kids, and you can try this at home, who works in a hospital? This is what you're going to get. Okay, most of the time the answers are going to be the nurse and the doctor, right? Nurses and doctors work in hospitals. If you or someone you know, or perhaps even your child, has ever spent time in a hospital, they're going to be able to give you more examples, because they're going to know that any given day they probably had no less than at least 10 people in and out of their room, right? Someone takes the blood, someone comes in and does their vitals, someone's changing the sheets, someone's changing the trash, someone's bringing their food, someone's picking up their food, someone's dropping off their medicine. I mean, just so many different things. There's the person who takes you to get your testing done. There's the person who brings you back. There's the person whose job is to take a patient from the room when they're discharged, right? So all of those positions are important. And then even more behind the background. How about in a school? Obvious answers, we're going to think teacher, right? The principal, maybe even the person in the cafeteria who's helping with the food. But again, we know that, we know, especially in what we're doing here, we know about all of the other positions, the coaches, we know about the custodial staff. We know, how about the teacher paraprofessionals that are in our classrooms and so important every single day? What about our data collection people, the people in the front office? So many important jobs that, again, they may not know about. Think about the team. And this could be a team in a high school, but I'm even thinking bigger than that. I'm a Cowboys fan. So when I think about the Dallas Cowboys, again, many of our students are going to say, well, it's the players and the coaches, right? But that's not true. We have somebody interested somehow in the medical field. They have trainers. They have groups of trainers that are helping with them. They have the practice coaches. They have people whose job it is to make sure that the team is hydrated during the game. They have people who, how about the stadium with thousands and thousands of people after? Someone, some people are responsible for coming in and making sure that everything is cleaned up, that it looks nice, that all of the chairs and parts are in working order. That's a really important job. And then in airline, we think about the flight attendants, we think about the pilots. We don't always think about the people who handle our bags, the people who are checking us in, the people who are directing the flights, the people in the control tower, making sure that we're not running into each other. Okay, so their scope only includes jobs that they've heard of or that they've seen oftentimes on TV. So part of our responsibility is to help them to recognize their strengths, interests, and abilities, and to help them find connections or to connect them on paths that can lead to possible jobs and careers in their future. So I mentioned earlier, paying attention to whatever they do. So noticing what they like to do. At home, are they liking to cook? Do they like to tend to the garden? Are they really good helpers? Helpers make up a big part of our society. We need those helpers. Is cleaning something that they do well? Maybe making their bed, that is like their forte, and in your house, that's the job that you've assigned them. What is it that they do well? Right now, in this time of distance learning, do you have a teenager who you have assigned, as I have, to help tutor a younger student in their math class? Okay, math questions come up immediately. I have, you know, one of our daughters is assigned to another one, and they know that. Are they fixing things? Okay, are they problem solvers? Do they like to decorate? And then what do they watch on TV? Notice the types of TV shows, notice the types of movies that draw them in. What do they talk about? Okay, are they always talking about truck modifications and things related to motorcycles and ATVs and electronic kind of things? It's fashion, maybe it's hair, maybe makeup. Those could be their specialties. And then what makes them happy? Do they enjoy being around other people? Do they enjoy singing? Do they enjoy helping? Do they kind of like to keep to themselves, which by the way is okay. All right, and then here we go. So as we get into these interest and career assessments, I'm going to share some tips with you that I would really like, and I think you'll get better responses from your children and from your students if you encourage them to do the same thing. So as they complete these surveys, they must make these choices based on their own personal interests and their own personal vision. Okay, and what I mean by that is not picking a job because someone else at home has been telling them this is the kind of job you'd be good at. Okay, but really thinking about, or that they're expected to do, or this is what their dad does. Okay, so thinking about, can they see themselves doing these actions, so to speak? Maybe not always that job, but could you see yourself doing that? Do you think you might find joy in that? Click yes, because at the end, they're going to get much better and more accurate profiles. Okay, so we're not going to make selections based on how much money they make. So each of these things that pop up on the different types of surveys we're going to look at today, they should not be considering in their head how much money it's going to make, because we know that all along in every job, every career, there's money to be made at many different levels. And so their scope of what they think makes money is probably not accurate for one. Plus, we all know many people who are unhappy doing a job because of the money, and it's not feeding their soul, so to speak, right? Not providing them any joy or purpose. So we don't want to pick, and we don't want them picking things based on gender. Okay, I already mentioned not picking what someone else thinks they should do, but we don't want them to exclude certain options for them because they think it's not something a boy can do, or it's not something a girl can do. So we don't want to think about stereotypes. Maybe there are stereotypes that have to do with age, stereotypes with gender, stereotypes with race. And then not necessarily on whether or not they want that exact job, because again, these surveys are building profiles. They're just connecting pieces. And then be honest, okay? And be willing to take several different ones. I'm going to show you guys several different ones today that and in fact, many of them kind of, you're going to see the connection, which is cool. And exploring the information provided. Okay, so take screenshots of them, download them, email the results to yourself so that they can have this to build on. And they can even retake them more than once. So maybe they do it this year, especially if you've got maybe a middle schooler or a ninth grader, and then maybe in a couple years do it again, and let's see how they've changed. So the assessment tools we're going to look at today, I've got 5 here. The first one we're going to look at is 1, 2, 3 test. It's using the Holland Code career test, or the Holland Code to perform this career test. Okay, that's what it's based off of. The next one is from a program called My Next Move. And we're going to focus and look at the details for the ONET interest profiler. That's one that we use a lot, really like it. Florida Shines is part of our Florida Department of Education. But Florida Shines and Career, they're kind of all working together, that Department of Education, Department of Labor, and it works for adults and students as well, looking into My Career Shine specifically. We have a pictorial interest inventory, actually, that we've modified just a bit, which is great for students who would benefit from pictures and narrowed down options. And then another one is called Road Trip Nation. So let's jump in. So the 1, 2, 3 Holland Code is using, according to this site, the most popular model for career tests today, and it's really going to focus on some personality types. And we'll see these pop up again as we get into the My Next Move, that ONET interest profiler, because they're looking at the same things, okay? But in thinking about personality, so realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, conventional. And then each of these have traits kind of out to the side. So if your child is identified as having social personality, not by what you think, but by what this survey is going to show, they're probably cooperative. The jobs that are going to pop up are going to be in supporting roles or helpers, healing, nurturing, teaching, okay? Enterprising, maybe competitive environment, leadership, persuading, status. You can see these kind of fit into that investigative. That's that analytical, intellectual, scientific, explorative thinker, and then realistic with the practical, hands-on machine, things like that. So when you go to that website, if you scroll down just a bit, you'll see exactly what I showed here, right? The realistic, investigative, artistic, and each of these on that website would actually be a link. And so I just clicked on realistic personality type before we even took a test. I just wanted to kind of see what was there. And so once it identified this person's personality, it actually pairs up, and you can kind of see here, it gives a description, all right? But then it's going to pair up realistic, because most of us have kind of a dominant career type personality, and then we have our secondary and our third, and then you can pair them up and get kind of similar but not quite the same job opportunities or areas of interest for a student. So you can see here we have realistic and artistic, and it gives kind of a description out to the side here, working outside, perhaps with animals, hands-on, traveling, working hard with combined with designing. And so some typical occupations perhaps for someone who is identified as being a realistic, artistic type personality could be an architect, it could be a photographer, a restaurant owner, maybe a glass blower, a tailor or seamstress. And so you can see that over on the top right side over here, you'll see realistic and enterprising. Again, you see similar, working outside, animals, operating machinery, traveling. So very similar again here, but it's added, okay? Working hard, instead of working hard combined with designing, we have working hard combined with enterprising and being influential. So a little bit different. So we have, a police officer, a firefighter, a farmer, a medical representative. So it's got a little bit of that business added in with the realistic side. So the career aptitude test that's on 1, 2, 3 tests, okay, that is tied to what we were just looking at, is a pictorial career interest survey, excuse me. It's going to take anywhere from 5 to about 15 minutes, maybe longer, depending on your student. But there are 15 sets of 4 pictures of actual work activities. And so you can see here, this one, it has a picture going to the office, and the people are different. So you'll see men, women, you'll see varying shades of hair and skin color, which I like. So going to the office, right? Researching a job or career and construction, engineering, or creative photography. And the directions on this one are that the student has to choose one and only one. So their favorite out of these 4, the one they see themselves doing the most, right? The one that they like the most interest in. And one that they are like, nope, that's not for me. If they find themselves tied, they're going to have to narrow it down to 1, okay? So you either had to choose one they like, one they don't like so much. On the right-hand side, at the end of the test, it asks for a bit more information about the person filling it out. So we have female, their age, and I just selected these just for kicks. But I put a female 18 in the United States in high school, and you can see how different countries would have different careers that may pop up, okay? And then selecting the education level is not necessarily selecting the educational level that I have right now, okay? Our kids are in middle and high school, so they're not going to be, have any of these quite yet. But the types of careers that they're looking for that may require these types of educational backgrounds. So for me, I selected all because I'm trying to get a profile to see what might interest me in the future. So first thing on the left, it gives you a personality type. Mine is even. I tried purposely to kind of pick things I thought might give me a pretty balanced answer so that it, I don't know. Anyway, so this is someone who may be a balanced person, okay? So it shows that enterprising is my top one, which is this orange one. When I look to the right over here, it's going to give me my top career choices. Okay, it's suggested occupations. And since I selected all degree levels, you're going to see a variety here as well. So the top 2, we have social services manager. It says I'm an 82% match based on my career choices and personality survey, or human resource manager. And I'd say both of those for me probably are pretty accurate. And then the third choice here is a travel agent. And it says that a travel agent's educational level varies, okay? So the first 2 jobs, it shows a bachelor's degree or higher, right? But then when I'm looking at the travel agent, I can see that it shows usually a high school diploma, sometimes more, but not necessarily required. All right, so keep that one in mind because we're going to see some answers here that are going to pair back to the other one. And I should mention too that on 1, 2, 3 tests, they actually have 20 different tests. So you can find not only the Holland career aptitude test that we just looked at, but you're going to be able to find some other types of personality surveys. There are some work value surveys and some different things like that. So ONET Interest Profiler is actually part of the mynextmove.org. And it is very easy. It's not too long. It has 60 specific task questions. So it is not pictorial in this representation. It is listed by words, and then it's on a 5-point scale from, and then you'll see a little happy and sad faces as we go along. But so it's a 5-point scale of like, no, really don't want to do that one, to, you know what, I could really see myself doing that. I like this. And then in the middle is kind of a neutral. So it would make sense on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are links to many different career options. What I really like about this one is at the end, it gives you some really cool detailed information. So you're going to be able to show your student, or your student can access videos of, you know, a descriptor of the career along with other connecting careers to that related field. They can select career options based on experience or education required, similar to the last one. And then they can also connect on things based on the same personality profiles as we just saw in the previous one. So if you go to mynextmove.org, this is their homepage. And right at the top, you'll see, what do you want to do for a living? I actually like that even better than what do you want to be when you grow up. But what do you want to do for a living? So you'll see you can actually search careers through keywords. So the first one says, I want to be A, and that indicates that your child already has a pretty strong idea. Okay, so we just type that right in there, and you can go directly to those careers. I'll know when I see it. So maybe they have an idea of an industry, right? Or they have an area that really interests them. And so they can actually browse by things that are connected in that way. Personally, even if your child already has an idea in their mind, I'd encourage them to do the interest profiler anyway. And then if they truly have a solid idea of what they want to do, you're probably going to see many of those career paths pop up on that. And so then that career profiler is going to be this last one over here where it says, tell us what you like to do. So when you first click on the interest, okay, it's going to take you to the ONET Interest Profiler. If the student has already taken it, so I took the profile and then I went back later to do it again, or excuse me, to log into results again, because this one you're not creating an account. So they can actually save their scores, and then right here, you'll see where it says enter scores. They could actually just enter their scores again and move right past the questionnaire part to the results, which is cool. So here are the happy and sad faces I'm talking about. So we've got 1 up to 5, and samples are like building kitchen cabinets, okay? Lay brick or tile. Develop a new medicine. So buy and sell stocks and bonds, manage a retail store, and then you'll see these repeated. The colors are not relevant. Remind them as they're going through these, just like on the last one, to be honest in their answers. Okay, so for example, like, I'm not sure I'm a carpenter, but the idea of building some cabinets sounds pretty cool to me. When they're finished, they're going to have some options. So right up here where it says job zone, these job zones are referring to the level of education or experience required for a particular career or job. They could pick each individual one if they want to. If they're not really, sure what it means by some preparation needed, they can click on this link. It will give them more information for what that means, and then they can change at any time. And if you notice right here when they're in the results where it says click to change your job zone, they can actually click through. They don't have to go back to this page per se. They can start here and then click on the next one, and they'll see these change just a little bit to something that requires more education or more experienced backgrounds. And then these, if you'll notice, I'm going to see realistic, I see artistic, I see enterprising, we have creative. I mean, all of these that were listed in that 1, 2, 3 survey, we're seeing again. And then they can actually click on a career. Okay, so I'm actually going to pretend that I clicked on childcare worker, and then this is an example of what you're going to find here. So each of these careers offers a one-pager, which, by the way, it has a print option. Awesome. It gives an idea of what do they do on the job you would, so some more specific tasks related to that career, and then knowledge, skills, and abilities that would be required, the types of personalities that do well in a position like that, the technology that they may use or will be beneficial for them, how much education they need to perform this job. Job outlook is always good to know. Okay, it's a good idea to be looking for jobs that are on the rise, or at least have some stability, than jobs that are really niche or maybe are fading based on technology development or something like that. And then there are some buttons down here too. And in an hour, I can't go over all these, but I would encourage you to play with a couple of them. So there's one that says check out my state. So you can actually look at salary. You can look at local if it's available. Many of them are available for local. Explore more gives you some other connections over here. And what I liked was this one, because I don't know about you, but our students are always asking, right? And your children are probably doing the same thing. Well, how can I find out more about that? Or where could I go to train for that type of job, right? Or when we're mentoring and a student brings up a certain type of job or welding, I might need to be able to help them figure out where they could go for some training. So by clicking on Find Training, it actually takes you to this area right over here, okay? And you can type in your zip code. So I typed in my zip code and I said within 50 miles. So this was already filled in from the previous page. I didn't have to do anything different. But down here at the bottom, you can see it lists Indian River State College as being, you know, within 50 miles from my residence. And then it gives me a program name. So Child Care Provider Assistant, they actually have a program there. And then I could have clicked on Indian River State College and then gone to find out more information. So that's really directly, you know, immediately connecting our children to things that can help them, which is fantastic when we're talking about 11th and 12th graders who really need to be, you know, thinking about their next steps along those lines. So the next page, in fact, that is not true. I'm going to show you this video here. So when you're on the My Next Move, okay, so up here you see there's a video. I'm actually going to show this to you. And so this is something that a student could see based on a career interest.
In addition to enjoying being around children, it takes patience, stamina, and good communication skills to handle a child care worker's responsibilities. Child care workers care for children as a service to parents and families. Child care workers' tasks depend on the age of the child. They provide for basic needs such as feeding, changing diapers, and instituting a regular sleep time for babies and toddlers, and also introduce concepts like sharing and playing games. Child care workers use storytelling and hands-on activities to help prepare preschool-age children for kindergarten. School-age children may need help with homework or rides to activities. Tasks also vary with work setting. Child care center workers generally work full-time in teams. They teach structured lessons, prepare activity schedules, and keep records of children's progress. Family child care providers work in their own homes to care for children during the parents' workday. They must also follow local regulations, set policies, and market their services. Nannies work full-time for one family and are in charge of children throughout the day, including preparing meals and coordinating activities. Some nannies live with the family. Babysitters typically work part-time for multiple families as needed. Education and training requirements vary from no formal education to post-secondary education and early childhood education. Employers often prefer at least a high school education. Many states require child care centers, including those in homes, to be licensed. Some employers require child care workers to have a nationally recognized credential from a child care association.
All right, so I like videos, our kids like videos. That really brings to life something that maybe they thought they were interested in. You may have a student who's considering welding or automotive or HVAC or maybe they want to be a teacher, right, or a scientist. And so clicking on something like this, as you watch, not only was it visual, but it also even went through to describe other areas related to being a child care worker. So ways that they could work maybe in someone's home through being a nanny, working in home, providing in-home daycare. So that to me was really interesting. And I think our kids really would connect to something like that. So another opportunity to help them is going to be looking at a program called My Career Shines, which is out of the state of Florida. And this is accessible to everyone, even adults, veterans, someone looking for a career change, just so many different options here. But our students can log in, or at least I was able to log in with my high schooler's school account. I just entered her school email or computer login, and it took me right there. So reaching out to your child's school to find out if they have connected their students, that would be probably a good thing, because this information is actually stored, which is fantastic. So they're logging in and they're able to create even something like an e-portfolio, so they can hold their resume, they can keep track of their volunteer job experience, or maybe even they have a transition program in their high school where they're working on specific transitional skills or volunteering with different organizations. Like, count that, keep track of it. As they're making contacts going through, help your student learn how to keep track of those things. So when they are going to look for a job or potentially a scholarship, they're going to have those contacts readily available to them. At the bottom here, this is kind of what you're going to find, and you'll see the 3 areas they focus on, which are go to college, succeed in college, which is going to be all about, helping your kid to be successful, to move from one program to another. And then finding a career, which is what we're going to focus on, which is called My Career Shines. All right. So when we click on and enter this program, on the right-hand side of the screen, and I took off the personally identifying information on the left, but there's kind of a to-do task list, like what to do next. And it gives you all of these areas that they can work. And you'll see review samples of study plans, update your educational plan, because once they do kind of have an idea for what they want to do in the future, then they can track that here and build upon it, which is really neat. So here you're going to see 3 assessments offered. So there's the career assessment, there's a skill assessment, and there's a work value inventory. All 3 parts of these are super important, and they're kind of going to give our students a little bit different glance at exactly what their prospects or their interests or their skill levels may face. So for one, interest, do they like or dislike each activity? And then the second one that's about skills confidence is how confident are they in completing each thing? So if it says to build a doghouse, right? Or what's important to them in a work environment. And so here I have a sample of each one. In the upper left-hand side, this is what the first page of that career interest survey looks like. And so the very first one, you can see that they're clicking on those blue bars. So the first one has strongly dislike, neutral like, or strongly like. Similarly set up to the ONET interest profiler, right? Except it doesn't have the faces. Instead, we have the verbal descriptions. But perform for an audience. And that doesn't have to mean that they're going to be an actor, but does your child like to perform? Are they the person when you have dinner that they want to, react out something that happened in the supermarket earlier that day? Or in the classroom, are they the first person to want to share out, about whatever question the teacher asked? Those are things that you can observe and note, and then those are things to help them mark here that yes, they do or don't like that. The second one to the left, or excuse me, to the right, I may have my right and left confused, forgive me. But the skills confidence assessment. So how about read several scientific articles and write a conclusive summary? If your child's like, I am all over that, I've already been looking up different studies of the planets and when the next meteor is coming this way or something like that, then maybe their answer is going to be a 5. Okay, and it tells you at the top that number 5 means I really want to do that, and number 1 is not something I can really do. So again, this is about their ability level. Can they do it? Not necessarily whether they like to do it, but are they able to do it? Because sometimes we can use our abilities and work them into our interests, right? And then the bottom one is our work value. So how important are these things on a job? So is it really important to me to feel that I have a sense of achievement at the end of the day? Do I want to leave work going, you know what, I did something really good today, or I accomplished my to-do list. I had, 10 sets of folders to file and sort, and I did it. Then that's something that they need to mark as 5. Okay, that means it's really important, it's crucial. They don't want to work if they don't feel like they're getting something done. Now remember that a sense of accomplishment for some people means it's a purpose, I'm changing the world. And for other people, it means they had a specific job to do and they were able to get done what they had to get done, and they know that their job is important. And so that's helping them understand what those things mean. I chose child care worker again on this one just because we had looked at it previously. And notice in the bottom right-hand side that this video here is exactly the same as the other video. These videos are coming from the Department of Labor. Okay, so everything's kind of connected, which I think is cool. Everyone's not always reinventing all the wheels, right? So right here, kind of in the upper middle section, you're gonna see an overview. So we have overview and then other tabs, tasks and conditions, interests, skills and work values, education and experience, related occupations, salary and outlook. And if we were in person, I would say, what else does that look like? Okay, this looks like the one pager that we saw for the ONET interest profiler, but this one gives more details. Each of these is dedicated to a page. So there's a little bit more information provided here, but very similarly set up to the ONET interest profiler. I know what my students are always looking for is they want to know about the money. Okay, so here in the bottom, the quick facts, it kind of gives them, and this is national. So what people are paid in California is much different probably than what someone may be paid in Florida or Georgia. I clicked on another task here. So we have the tasks and conditions. So this is going to talk about like how it is that they work. And on the right-hand side, because as I mentioned, students that I've worked with in the past is probably similar to yours. I don't want them to pick a job based on money, but I know they want to know, money and what they can expect. So here for child care worker, I actually clicked on the hourly salary, and you'll see that it shows yearly salary and then hourly. Most child care workers are paid hourly, and so it's important for them also to understand how hours work up and how that money equates into, an annual type job. For if they see $20,000, to them that's a lot of money, but divided up over 12 months, it may not necessarily equate to what they think. So here we have a pictorial interest inventory, and there are other links, on the internet for something similar. Ours actually has been adapted from another one, and this is fantastic. Okay, this modified version is great if you have a student or a child who would do better to have only 2 options to pick from and who would really like to see a visual, right? So, so this could be for a younger student perhaps, or a student where developmentally this is what's going to be most appropriate. So in A and B, in A we have someone who is working on a car, okay? And then B, we have someone sorting in a mail area or sorting files. And then they would select A or B, and then you would help them by keeping tally, okay? So that allows for verbal responses, and it also prompts for discussion. So it allows you to maybe explain or give some examples of maybe people they might know that are in those positions, which can be really cool. And this is an example of a tally sheet. So each of those careers was listed, or those jobs was listed with an A through H. And then you would tally how many they marked in each one to be able to give them an overall interest area or cluster of areas. Just as in the other one, someone may have a strong, maybe their top one may be like food services, but then they also had custodial housekeeping right next to it, and that's all in that hospitality industry, right? So trying to help them pick out not only possible singular positions or areas, but also helping them to combine their strengths and interests. So discussing the types of jobs and career that are shown within each category, and then within similarly scored categories for them. And these can be used as a starting point when they're starting to look for jobs. Okay, or when you're starting to help them look for jobs. So they could go in, remember on the ONET interest profiler, how they could actually type in a specific job. So a file clerk, data entry, working in a library, something like that. You type in a keyword and then it's going to give you other jobs related. So this last one is called Road Trip Nation. And I actually enjoyed this one. This was different. It was my first time to interact with this one. And it's set up a little bit, not quite along the same lines. This one has 3 general areas, essentially the same thing, right? So your interest, and then what's really most important to you. So it gives you a list or pictures. It's a pictures and words list, which I'll show you on the next slide. But they're having to pick one from each slide, okay, or each page. And then in the end, it's going to group different types of careers in similarly linked fields, so to speak. So this is very different. This one has a strong human element, and that this is set up like documentaries, and they're taking people based on the areas of interest that they selected and what really drives them. And then they're interviewing them. How did you get here? Why is this important to you? Now, there is a free version of this, which actually gives a lot of really good information. It does have a fee of $24 a year if you want to unlock all the video components, which I felt like I was getting adequate and really good information without having to pay the additional $24, which is why I included it here. So they're also going to see clusters. So when I picture Road Trip Nation, I picture more of like a brainstorming web where things are kind of connected in that way. And so let's look and see what I'm talking about. So this says career explorations that start with you. And this is very much story-based. And you can even see in the bottom right-hand side, we've got John Legend. And these other people look familiar, but I can't picture their names. So, but they're going to be able to get some career examples and real-life stories from other people. Okay, it's going to say, this is how I started. These are the experiences I had. This is how I got here. It gives them tips and advice. And then again, they can link to other, to other people in similar areas of interest. So the 3 roadmap questions, the first one is, what interests you the most? And this page is actually filled. Here you can see acting, theater, action sports, armed services, and there's probably another 7 rows of listing 3 different things in each one. So going through and having them choose one of them. And then in the second one, it says, what else interests you? So I'm also interested in, okay, so the first one is that what's really most important to them. And you notice underneath it says, I lose track of time when I'm learning about. And the next one is, I also like. And so you'll see these things repeated, but they're not all repeated. And I know that because I tried to pick 2 different ones and they weren't in both sections. And then the final one says, what lights you up at your core? So it means that no matter what you're doing, this is something that really matters to you. So whether it's being creative, being physically active, accomplishing your goals, and then again, it has many more rows, so picking something. So for me, I picked nonprofit organizations, education, and being creative, in case you're wondering how I ended up with this lady. And then so the first person who popped up based on the selections that I chose is this lady named Elise Rosenblum. And it says she's a principal, which at first I was like, ooh, that's right along what I want to do. But she's a principal of a program called Grads of Life. And then I want to point out what I was talking about with that having to pay for additional, information. The very first video underneath, the center video here is the introduction. Okay, this is the highlight of her interview. That's free. And then you're going to see other pieces of her interview that are locked. And that's what you could unlock. But there's still a lot of really good information here available for free, which is great for helping our kids really explore things. And let's listen to just the very intro to her video very quickly.
I started out as a lawyer. I'm a lawyer by training. I sometimes call myself a recovering lawyer. I just always felt like I was kind of on the wrong side of every issue I was working on. So I left. And for about the last 10 or 15 years, I've focused in particular on this population that's now called Opportunity Youth. I run something called the Grads of Life Initiative. We work with employers mostly to help them change their talent practices so that they're more inclusive of young people who haven't finished college or have had other challenges in their background. And so we help employers kind of think a little bit differently about who can be part of their talent pipeline. There's a lot of ambiguity out there, but if you can kind of reframe that in your mind, if that's not how you naturally roll, trick your brain into being well, that's cool. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I know these are the skills I have and these are the things I like. And I'm going to figure out as I go what opportunities present themselves. Honing your skills as a communicator, as someone who can connect with people, who loves to learn, who's interested. Those are the things that really propel you on whatever journey you're going to go on.
Okay, I like her. So she shares many of the same sentiments that I personally feel and share with students that I connect with as well. And so her video was interesting, and personally, I kind of want to know what the rest of hers have to do with. But there's still really good information here. So we can see that she has a high school background or diploma. She has her bachelor's degree. She actually told us, right? She went on, she's got her doctorate. She's a lawyer, a recovering lawyer. I think that was pretty funny as well. And then she tells us about her career right now. She shares the day-to-day skills. She talks about there are some hurdles, and they're allowed to share things, challenges that they've overcome. They're allowed to kind of give bits and pieces of advice. As I mentioned before, out here, you can see related leaders. So these people's job titles did seem interesting to me, as they should, because I entered my personal information, right? So these I would click on again and see what other types of jobs are out there. What do they have to share? Maybe it's not always about knowing exactly what we want to do, but knowing what drives us, what's interesting to us, and then pursuing those opportunities when they open up to us. Skills to pay the bills. I shared this last week. It is a program that I do really like, and I think it's fantastic as a jumping point when we're working with teenagers, right? Middle and high school students, thinking about whether they're looking for a job right now, they're looking for a job forever, they're looking, to just gain those skills, those communication, those soft skills, those employability skills, for lack of a better term that's coming to my head right now, that's going to help them, or that are going to help them to be successful. And so this is a video series, if you aren't familiar with it, that just shows different, it shows kind of what to do, what not to do, what worked. One of them is about networking and how a student actually found, how they found a position, how they got a job. And it's a really good way, just a really cool way to keep that conversation going with your teen in relation to job skills. Because when you point out stuff at home, they're like, oh, Mom, get off my back. Who cares about my headphones? But when they're seeing it in some of these examples, and maybe they might even in a way be able to poke fun just a bit, but you're being able to see it in real life, which is pretty cool. So as you work through these different career assessments and personality surveys and interest and skills inventory with your student or with your child at home, which is, by the way, is something fantastic, no matter middle, high school, to do with your student right now while we're home, don't waste these opportunities, okay? Take notes. If you have access to a printer and you're able to print off any of them, I think it'd be fantastic to keep in a file. But at the very least, take notes. Take notes of especially things that your child seems to connect with. If your team was like, wow, I didn't even know that existed, but that sounds like really cool. If you have a student who likes to explore and likes to look things up, why don't you have them pick their top 3 careers that popped up? If you did a couple of them, you're probably going to notice some similar types of jobs and career opportunities, but have them look those things up. Why don't you help your child to look up or discover the types of businesses that might hire someone in high school with your child's ability set, okay? So these are things that we can be doing right now, right? So encourage them to start taking notes. You take notes. Maybe you might even find a series on TV that is somehow connected to the types of careers that are lining up for your student. Give them a little bit of inside information. Although if they're looking to go in the medical field, as much as I love Grey's Anatomy, I'm not sure that's really an accurate reflection of, what it's like to work in that environment, but I think you understand what I'm saying, right? So getting them connected with some things to help open their eyes a bit. Reassure them that, they don't have to know what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And there's research out there that suggests that adults change jobs many times. If share with your student what kind of jobs you've had in your life from high school through, your mid-20s, even as a grown-up. Perhaps you've even had major career shifts. Okay, some people are like the lady we just watched that, right? Elise went from being a lawyer to now she's, started her own business, actually working with other, companies to identify potential and people they may not normally open up their job pool to, that was pretty cool, right? To promote inclusivity to groups that may not have been offered a job in those positions. That was pretty interesting. And then don't be afraid. Take this information to your IEP, right? How about this? How about you help your student find the words and be prepared to share this information themselves at their next IEP meeting, right? Isn't being an active participant in their IEP meeting in high school especially really important and part of those transitions to getting them ready into transitioning into independent living and adulthood? Okay, help them. You can help them at home now without waiting to get back to school, to give them some information. Knowledge is power, right? Hopefully you have gained hopefully some ideas, maybe something new you weren't quite familiar with, or maybe you hadn't really explored it too much on your own, even if you had heard of it before. But hopefully you're leaving with something that can help you help your student to identify their own interests, their own strengths, and perhaps their passion and joy and what really brings them purpose. If you have questions, feel free to share them as well, and we'll see if we can answer them. The resources, where I pulled information from, again, Kaiser University, that's our website. You're going to find some really cool things there. We actually have an employment-related skills resource guide available on there that I found some cool things in. So, don't be afraid. Click on these links. Play with them. That's really what I did just to research, just looking around to see what's out there and what might be beneficial to my students.